Good morning, traders. This is your daily market breakdown. On the GBP USD on the daily time frame, we can see that the price has pushed itself down much lower. We can see that it has now broken structure with a full body break. This indicates that we are still in a downtrend. What I am worried about is that there is a potential demand zone that we have just entered here. And so what I'll be looking at is to see what the reaction is going to be like while it's within this demand zone. If we drop down to a lower time frame, again, we can see that the price has moved lower and lower, producing these lower highs here. And so we can see that we are definitely in a downtrend. So today I'll likely be looking for short positions. What I may be also looking to do is looking for a slight long position, potentially targeting some of the liquidity that is potentially resting up here. We can see that once the price broke market structure here, it has formed another supply zone, which we are currently in at the moment. So I kind of want to see what is happening within the supply zone. If there is a reaction for it to continue into the downside, then I would likely short from this position if we see a breaker structure into the downside. If not, and we see it to continue climbing, then we're likely looking at this area before looking for a short position. If I go over to the Euro US dollar, we see a slightly different story emerging where the price had come down on the 4-hourly time frame. The price had come down. It then had a very strong reaction to this level here. And we can begin to see that it is climbing back into the upside, collecting liquidity, resting above these highs. And so what I'll be looking at the moment is to see now what is going to happen after liquidity is taken here. If we can see that there is a potential reversal about to occur, then I will likely enter into a position around this area and targeting these lower lows here. So this will be my setup for today. But again, I would only be waiting for confirmation into the downside before I entered into that position. We can drop down into the lower time frames and we can see that there is a potential reversal happening at this point in time. But what I would also want to do is wait for the London session to open to see where the price really wants to take us. We can see a very nice, strong breaker structure with a full body break here. This is likely then creating a new pullback, bringing us to the 0.5 fib area, where then, okay, we'll see whether or not the price continues here, breaking that structure. Then I'll be waiting for the next liquidity grab. Or if it fails to break this structure and continues into the downside, breaks market structure down here, then I'll likely enter into a short position, targeting that lowest low on the higher time frame. Right, over to the DXY. Yesterday, I did mention that there was a substantial amount of liquidity resting below this ascending wedge. This is a beautiful example of a stock chart pattern, the ascending wedge. And what happens with the ascending wedge is that it's actually a bearish pattern. And this has played out beautifully for that bearish pattern. So we have this ascending line and then broke the line and begun pulling itself back down, grabbing liquidity that is likely resting below these points. And so what I'll be waiting to see today is how the price reacts at each of these levels if it continues to go down lower and lower. And I would want to see what happens when it reaches these levels. If a potential reversal occurs where we see a nice breaker structure into the upside, then I would be looking for a long position, breaking this previous high and creating a new higher high. So I am actually bullish on the DXY at the moment. And don't forget that we have the non-farm payrolls coming up this week as well, and they are forecasted to be pretty good. So we could be seeing that the DXY is just collecting liquidity on its way down before the NFP, the non-farm payrolls come out, and it might shoot back into the upside. And this would reflect very well for the GEU and the euro dollar, as we're likely looking for shorting positions on those two major currency pairs. So the XAU performed perfectly to what I had put out yesterday. We saw that a demand zone was created, and we created this demand zone because we saw a very beautiful breaker structure here on the 4-hour time frame. And then we can see that the price retraced back into that demand zone, and again breaking the previous high with a full body break. So it came up, it retested into that demand zone before shooting itself back up, and now we can begin to see resistance forming at this level. I'm still quite bullish on gold. I think gold is going to continue pushing itself back up. What I will like to see is what happens when it enters into the zone. we could see another little pullback to this potential demand zone here. And when it does enter into this demand zone, would then want to see whether or not there's a breaker structure into the upside. And then I would be targeting the higher highs that are resting above this area. So I am bullish today on XAU. I think that it's going to continue up. It's going to grab a bit of liquidity here. It's going to pull back to a demand zone. We'll wait for a breaker structure, see what happens before it then pushes itself back into the upside. On the lower time frame, we can somewhat see that the price is still trying to push itself back up. So with the Fibonacci retracement level, we can see it's come to a 0.5 pullback range, and it's likely going to continue up into that zone before pulling back more aggressively. And this may fall in line with the London session for the GU and the US dollar, pushing those two major pairs up to those liquidity areas before then pushing them down. Right over to BTC, we can actually see this financial instrument moving. For once, it's been in this horrible consolidation phase for a very long time. And I believe that is because of all of the uncertainty that has been happening. And it's a very risk-on asset. So a lot of people don't like to trade BTC during uncertain times. What we are seeing, though, is we're still in a bit of a consolidation phase, but we are beginning to see ascending highs and ascending lows. And this is a good indication that we could see that the BTC may begin creating this ascending wedge that could see the price break above the $70,000 mark. But I think once it enters into that $70,000 mark, we're likely going to see a big sweep in liquidity and drop into the downside before, if anything, potentially moving into the upside. So I am still bearish. I'm short-term bullish on BTC, but long-term bearish, if that makes any sense. So I just want to see whether or not the price would likely bounce from this ascending high, create a new higher low, jump back up, create a new higher high, higher low until it reaches this zone, and then we'll be looking for selling. So at the moment, I want to see it retrace back down to here before taking a long, and I would likely sell out around this area when it hits that ascending high trend line. And then I'd like to see what happens when it comes back down here and potentially take a long. So that will be my play. But I usually don't rarely trade BTC, and I don't think it's a very fun instrument to be trading at this point in time. It's a very volatile market for BTC. And there it is, traders. That's your daily market breakdown.